Good afternoon and welcome back to Only the Truth, where we dive into true crime stories that have inspired me to write the Mary MacIntosh series. So today we're going to discuss my book, Deputy Dawg, or D.B. Cooper, a Mary MacIntosh novel. This is the cover of the novel. Thank you to Dalen Lawrence, who taught me how to use AI to design a cover for a book. And that is actually him as my sheriff. So today, exploring the mysterious American legend, D.B. Cooper, and its curious ties to Deputy Dawg, an unforgettable character in my Mary MacIntosh novel, Deputy Dawg or D.B. Cooper. We'll investigate the mystery behind D.B. Cooper's legendary heist when he hijacked the plane from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington, demanding in 1971 $200,000 cash and four very specific parachutes to jump out of that plane at 10,000 feet. And this heist, how it influenced one of my most daring stories. D.B. Cooper, who was he? Well, in 1971, he did hijack the Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, making the demands. He did jump out of the plane at 10,000 feet with about 20 pounds of cash tied to his body with the parachute. And it has, he's never been seen again. And it is a case that inspired countless movies, films, books, stories, including mine, Deputy Dawg or D.B. Cooper. Deputy Dawg, who was he? Well, in 1971, the same year D.B. Cooper hijacked a plane, a man with the moniker of Deputy Dawg, who was a spinoff of the Charles Manson gang, and we're talking bad gang, not cool hippie dudes. These people were hippies, but they were bad gang members, and his moniker was Deputy Dawg. They were up in Boulder, Colorado area, but they matriculated up to the mountains in Nederland, a darling throwback hippie town that still exists to this day, where my home cabin is. And Deputy Dawg shot the sheriff in the Pioneer Bar in Nederland and killed him. And so he was then on the lam for forever. So we have D.B. Cooper on the lam in 1971. We have Deputy Dawg on the lam in 1971. And in my fiction, Deputy Dawg or D.B. Cooper, I combine them into one person, bring them to Sheridan, Wyoming, where the culprit shoots and kills the local sheriff in the Last Chance bar right outside of Sheridan, Wyoming, where the book is based. So combining characters, I would like at the end, if you go on my website of www.maureenmeehanbooks.com, if you have any stories about D.B. Cooper, where you were when that happened, what you remember from that time, because it's the only solved, unsolved U.S. hijacking in the history of the country. So share with me your stories if you have any. There's a little thing on my website where you can email me. Back to the podcast. The truth doesn't just reveal itself. It's unearthed by those willing to dig past the blood-soaked lies. Introducing this podcast, Only the Truth. We are focusing on Deputy Dawg and D.B. Cooper, and we are going to fictionally combine them, where Mary MacIntosh has to solve this murder in Sheridan, Wyoming, of the local sheriff. So getting into this book, I'm going to tell you some facts about, first of all, D.B. Cooper and this hijacking. So I'm going to read to you some excerpts from the novel. Deputy Dawg or D.B. Cooper is dedicated, first of all, to all true crime enthusiasts. You know who you are. You love an unsolved crime more than most, and the mystery remains alive. The portion of this novel that deals with the murder of the sheriff in Nederland, Colorado, may this hero rest in peace. The portion of this novel concerning D.B. Cooper's hijacking is dedicated to flight attendant Florence Schaffner, who kept her wits about her during the hijacking of the Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle. And there are a few crew members and a lot of passengers who probably owe their lives to this woman keeping her head on straight. So who was Deputy Dawg? Well, the sheriff in Nederland was beloved, and Sheriff Forbes was a well-liked law enforcement officer in town, and World War II victim. And not only that, he served in World War II, Vietnam, and Korea. And this man was an absolute gem of a man. With respect to Deputy Dawg, he was part of the STP spin-off gang of Charles Manson. STP was their moniker for Serenity, Tranquility, and Peace, but they were a cult from New York, whereas Charles Manson was West Coast, this was East Coast, and they were bad. They were run out of New York City. That's how bad these guys were. This group, men and women, of hippies, and committing a lot of crime, selling drugs, etc. So combining Deputy Dawg, who and ultimately kills the sheriff, and contrasting with D.B. Cooper hijacks a plane. What happened at the Pioneer Bar in Nederland was that uh, Deputy Dawg had a smart mouth, and he was always smarting off to people, but particularly the sheriff. And they were all in there having a drink, and things got a little out of hand. And when the sheriff went to leave the bar for the evening and go home in his truck, off-duty truck, he was followed out by Deputy Dawg out of the Pioneer Inn bar in Nederland, and he shot and killed the sheriff, drug his body up into the mountains, and left him for dead. The sheriff was not found for months until hunting season. So I think Dawg sniffed the sheriff out, but ultimately he was had a proper funeral. But in the meantime, Deputy Dawg is on the run. They believe he was on the lam in Florida and Georgia for quite some time. So there was a trial. He was convicted of murder, but it doesn't give the family a lot of closure with respect to the sheriff being killed, and this man is not in jail. So that's a part of the novel that I wanted to explain and explore a little bit with the audience. So he disappears, never is heard from again, and this family has to bury the sheriff without closure. Now we're going to pivot back a little bit more to the D.B. Cooper side of this, because I think that most people know about what happened on this hijacking, but it was the day before Thanksgiving, November 24th, 1971. The last person to buy an airline ticket had a ticket issued to D. Cooper, paid cash in Portland, and got on this flight. And he proceeded to he had sunglasses on, a skinny black tie, and he was sitting in the back drinking a bourbon and Coke and smoking nonstop. And he asked the flight attendant, he asked to hand her a note, which she ultimately accepted his note, and it was a hijacking demand. So what happened is she was now having to communicate with the pilot saying, we have a problem on board. We have a man who is threatening. He gave me a note saying he's hijacking the plane, and he listed his demands in this note that she ultimately handed to the pilot. The pilot calls it in, says their flight from Portland to Seattle has been hijacked. They need runways cleared. They need emergency response teams in place for the landing in Seattle. Gives out the details of his hijacking demand of the $200,000 and the 4 very specific backpacks, and proceeds. They land in Seattle, and it takes a couple hours to get this kind of cash the day before Thanksgiving, and to get those very specific military grade parachutes. But eventually they do meet his demands, and he then allows everyone off the flight, all the passengers and some of the crew. He keeps the 2 pilot, co-pilot, and this stewardess that we've dedicated the book to, Florence, and our flight attendant would be called these days. And anyhow, they get everything on board. His demands are met. She sits back with him in the last row and is trying to keep him calm, and they take off. Well, they're being intercepted by military flights, or escorting them now. He wants to fly to Mexico City with a stop in Reno for gas. So they're being escorted in the 727, and all along he's planned to not only hijack this flight, but he's going to parachute out of it. So he makes them fly at 10,000 feet in terrible weather. It's raining like cats and dogs. He lowers the aft staircase. Back then, you could do it from the back of the plane, and um, he allowed the stewardess flight attendant to then go up toward the cockpit so she didn't get sucked out by the draft. He was kind enough to do that for her, but she had been very kind to him and cooperative. So at about 8 p.m., cockpit warning light goes on that the aft staircase has been lowered. And at 8:13, the airline suddenly pitched, tail pitched forward. The captain and crew had to use trim to correct this pitch maneuver, and it was a result of this man weighing what, maybe 170 pounds with 20 pounds of cash and 10 pounds of parachute. So 200 pounds jumps off the plane, pitching the airplane a little bit. And they were somewhere close to the Oregon border when he jumped, but he jumped into the night, never to be seen again. So that is D.B. Cooper. He hijacked a plane, $200,000, 4 parachutes, never to be seen again. Now, fast forward, this case was under investigation for ever, decades, in fact, and just no clues, absolutely no clues were coming up. And then fast forward to 1980, a family was on the Columbian River, and the 10-year-old boy was helping dad collect stuff for the firewood and all that jazz, and he's sifting through some sand, and he sees bits and pieces of cash. Well, this is February 10th of 1980. The 8-year-old, I guess not 10-year-old, 8-year-old Brian Ingram is the one who found the cash. It was turned in, and it was noted that the numbers on the bills corresponded with the hijacked money, so that they know that at least the money hit the ground. What happened to D.B. Cooper? They have done searches for years now, and nobody has seen or heard from him or found his body or his remains, nor the parachutes. So that is Deputy Dawg or D.B. Cooper. So then these characters unite in Wyoming, fictionally in my novel, and I bring them to Sheridan, Wyoming, where Mary MacIntosh, our protagonist, is. And what happens is Deputy Dawg or D.B. Cooper shoots the local Sheridan County, Wyoming sheriff at a bar called the Last Chance Bar in Bighorn, Wyoming, right outside of town of Sheridan. And Mac has to prosecute this crime. But since the shooting, this man has disappeared on foot back up into the mountains where he was hiding out, fictionally in this novel. And so Mac has to get a crew together, FBI consultants, profilers, her own search and rescue team, her boyfriend at the time, who was a sheriff in another town not too far away, and they have to combine forces to do a search. So they have helicopters in the air searching for this criminal who just shot the sheriff, and then you have ground crew, and Mac's part of the ground crew. And they do ultimately have a confrontation with him up in the mountains. I'm not going to tell you how it ends, because that's why you're going to read this book called Deputy Dawg or D.B. Cooper, a Mary MacIntosh novel. I'm going to read you some of the reviews because I think they're helpful in framing this story and how the reviews that have come in. So Pirius on December 30th of 2024, just within the month, calls this Past Crimes Cast Long Shadows. In this gripping legal thriller, Meehan masterfully weaves together 2 notorious 1971 crimes: the brutal murder of Sheriff Gaughnor at the hippie town known as Nederland, Colorado, and Deputy Dawg is the killer, whereas the legendary D.B. Cooper skyjacking together when the sheriff is gunned down outside of the Wyoming saloon. Prosecutor Mary MacIntosh finds herself untangling threads that mysteriously connect both historic cases. The author brilliantly reconstructs the tension and turbulence of the early 1970s, bringing authenticity and a clever merger of facts and fiction. MacIntosh proves to be a compelling protagonist, methodically pursuing justice while navigating complex web of clues linking past to present. Meehan's clever handling of the historical details and proceedings adds depth without slowing down the story's momentum. The novel builds to an unexpected yet satisfying conclusion that will keep readers guessing until the final pages. It is highly recommended. Another review is recent Jacob. Says highly reviewed, highly recommended on December 30th as well of 2024. Maureen Ann Meehan's Deputy Dogger D.B. Cooper keeps readers on the edge of their seats. Through the lens of Mary MacIntosh's legal expertise, the novel delves into the mystery surrounding two legendary crimes of 1971. The seamless weaving of historic events with fictional elements creates a suspenseful and thought-provoking journey. Fans of true crime and courtroom drama will find this book both fascinating and unable to put it down. AM Gamer calls this a fresh perspective on iconic historical events, dated January 1, 2025, just a few days ago. Deputy Dogger D.B. Cooper by Maureen Ann Meehan masterfully blends historical events with fiction, crafting a suspenseful and engaging narrative. Focusing on two legendary crimes, the novel captures the intrigue and mystery and legal drama in a seamless and thought-provoking way. The combination of fact and storytelling keeps readers captivated from the beginning to the end. Fans of true crime and courtroom dramas will find this book compelling and nearly impossible to put down, offering a fresh perspective on iconic historical events. And then Phil Bolos gives a great review. It calls it What Has Happened, What Really Happened, on January 4th, 2025, so just a couple days ago. Deputy Dogger D.B. Cooper by Maureen Ann Meehan is a great novelle which brings together two of the greatest crimes of the past 50 years in American history. The author takes the killing of a sheriff and the notorious hijacking committed by D.B. Cooper and blends them together into one story that will leave the reader wondering what really happened in the early 1970s. The author is clearly well educated on these two topics, and she brings all of her knowledge to the pages to create a new story that feels just as unique and bizarre as the actual real cases. The story moves at a fast pace, and for being so short, does a great job developing the characters, giving us insights into their motivations, and fans of speculative historical fiction would greatly enjoy this read, along with those who are fans of thrillers and mysteries. So once again, hats off to true crime. You can't make this stuff up. You couldn't make up crazier stories than true crime, and that's why Only the Truth is my true crime podcast, focusing on currently my novels of true crimes, where I usually try to combine two true crimes in history into one novel, and it's just a blast to write these Mary MacIntosh books. So thank you for joining me. I'm Maureen Ann Meehan, the author of the Mary MacIntosh series, and I'll see you next time on Only the Truth, where every mystery has a story. Thank you. Thank you for joining me.